Welcome back, everybody. This is Inside Man United. My name is Rowan Brennan. Thank you very much for joining me again. We have some updates from yesterday. There has been some injury news with regards Manchester United at the left back position. You may already be aware of, but what does that mean for the lineup for Erik Ten Hag against Nottingham Forest on the weekend? More bad news hitting the squad with injuries. If things weren't bad enough, between Mason Mount, Luke Shaw is now injured and could be out for weeks, if not months. So the problems continuing to mount for Erik Ten Hag. We also just have a little bit of an update on what Erik Ten Hag could be doing in the transfer market as a result of this. And we look forward to the game against Nottingham Forest on the weekend. How are we supposed to line up, even if we didn't have the injuries? I think that team needed a bit of a reshuffle, if I'm being honest. So these injuries, is it making decisions that Erik Ten Hag would have had to make a little bit easier? Who knows? But either way, let's get into it. So first things first, let's get our transfer news out of the way. Nothing huge to update on yesterday's news in terms of Altay Bayındır has apparently undergone his medical at Man United already. The goalkeeper waved goodbye to fans at Fenerbahce's last game, I believe, gave a farewell speech, and he has flown to Manchester. There was rumours of a couple of other goalkeepers that I didn't even go into yesterday. Such was the kind of, I suppose, progress with the Altay Bayındır deal. I called him Ayındır in yesterday's video quite a lot, so apologies if that was wrecking anyone's head yesterday. But yeah, Altay Bayındır has left Fenerbahce. It looks like he's got his medical done and will be coming to United. A very well thought of keeper who was touted for great things. He did have a very serious injury to his shoulder after a clash with a player back in 2019. And ever since then, his form has kind of been up and down, a little bit mixed. He's caused some frustrations for the Fenerbahce fans, but a player with undoubted quality. His career has been stifled a little bit with a shoulder injury, but it seems that is hopefully no longer the case. And he's definitely going to be getting minutes in January, seeing as Andre Onana has come out of retirement. For anyone that didn't know, he retired because the Cameroon coach wanted him to play in a way that he didn't like. So he went, stuff you. This is the way I goalkeep. And if the way I goalkeep doesn't suit the way Cameroon want to play, well, then it's probably best I don't play for Cameroon. Ballsy move, I think you'll agree. And listen, he's made a U-turn now. Obviously, being one of the best goalkeepers in the world, I think it would be very foolish for Cameroon not to maybe go, all right, maybe we play how you want to play, and that seems to be the case. So Onana, having come out of retirement, will now be missing for at least 4 games at the turn of the new year. So Altay Bayındır is most definitely going to be getting some game time, and hopefully has enough time to adapt to Ten Hag's tactics and the way he likes his goalkeepers to play, which is obviously very good with the ball at their feet, distributing, being the first line of attack and the last line of defense, playing outside of the box quite regularly. So hopefully he can adapt to that. Luke Shaw, being injured, we'll talk a little bit about that later on, and the lineup, but it has forced Erik Ten Hag to look into the market for a potential replacement left back. This is off the back of Brandon Williams now securing a move to Ipswich Town. It could not have come at a worse time, because Brandon Williams actually might have got a run out at left back, given that Malacia has been out since before pre-season with a reasonably serious injury that's kept him out for a middling length of time. And with Luke Shaw now expected to be out for weeks, if not months, that left back position is wide open with no direct left back replacement there. We do have Alvaro Fernandez, but it does seem that Erik Ten Hag does not want to thrust the youngster into the first team spotlight just yet, and might be thinking that it's a little bit too much for Alvaro Fernandez to take on this early in his development and his career. So it looks like Erik Ten Hag will be dipping his toe into the transfer market for a position he obviously never thought that he was going to have to look into. This is off the back of selling Alex Telles. We've now put Brandon Williams out on loan. Alvaro Fernandez might be a little bit too young. And now we're going to be looking at replacements. I personally would be having existing members of the squad playing out left, very similar to how Pep Guardiola has used multiple centre halves across the entire back line for a majority of last season and certainly for the beginning of this one. So I don't see why we can't follow suit. But what Erik Ten Hag does as a result of this, I don't know. I would not be prioritising replacing a left back in the short term when we do have Malacia and Shaw to come back. Fernandez is also there, and we do have other players that can slot into that left back position as well. I hope we don't waste time and funds trying to find a left back. So it's, it remains to be seen what he's going to do. I think there's other areas of the pitch that quite clearly need attention. Sofyan Amrabat, that plane is still circling the airport waiting to land. Apparently the price has even been dropped to 21 million. Amazingly, Amrabat wanted to move and could have had a move to Barcelona last year, and Fiorentina said no, wanted to keep him, but did promise him that he would get a move the following summer. Obviously Barcelona are not back in for him for whatever reasons, and apparently the fee last year was going to be 34 million, and Fiorentina are now looking anywhere in the kind of mid-20s for Sofyan Amrabat at the moment. How that's worked out, I don't know. I believe maybe he only has a year left on his contract. I'm not too sure. I'll have to look into that again. But it looks like he can be gotten for as little as kind of 25, 26 million. Some other outlets saying as little as 21 million. The same could be said for Gravenberch. It seems Tuchel is pretty much okay with letting him go and can be gone for as little as 21 million. And there's also United looking at a loan given the restrictions they have on financial fair play and not being able to shift their own players. What happens, I don't know at this stage. I would be taking both midfielders in, to be honest. There's talk about Scott McTominay, that United want to keep him, that they're kind of reticent to losing him. But if they did get a larger fee, that they would obviously consider getting rid of him. But I don't see how that's the case. Erik Ten Hag made 5 substitutions against Tottenham and a game where our midfield was being absolutely overrun, and he still didn't get McTominay on the pitch. If that doesn't scream of a manager that either A, doesn't want to play you, or B, is trying to keep him fit for an eventual transfer and they're just haggling over the price, I don't know. But we need midfield reinforcements. We do have Scott McTominay and we used 5 substitutes and he wasn't brought on. That means he's either going to be moving soon or Erik Ten Hag has no faith in him and should be moving soon. Either way, would I pay a combined 46 million for Gravenberch and Amrabat and get 30 to 35 million for McTominay? I'd snap your hand off. It's an absolute no-brainer. And if we can sell McTominay for 30, get Amrabat in for 24, 25, and then get Gravenberch on loan with a guarantee to buy the following year, I mean, that's absolute no-brainer territory. So I don't know what the potential holdup is there. I don't know what's going on, but it does scream sense to me, which is not always the most obvious route for this Man United board. But what happens will remain to be seen. That's it for transfer news. So let's look ahead to the Nottingham Forest game. With Luke Shaw out, how do Manchester United reshuffle this squad? Mason Mount is out. Greenwood is obviously gone. Luke Shaw is now injured. So a lot of concerns for United looking ahead. I've been all over social media, Twitter. I've been on the Reddit forums, the comment sections of all the fan channels I watch. And there seems to be calls for Martial to start. And I've seen a lot of people. Now, I don't know whether they're doing this for clickbait and just trying to get engagement on the thread by putting up what I believe to be, frankly, ridiculous suggestions to fill the gaps in that we currently have in the squad. Anthony Martial should not be anywhere near a first team of Manchester United. I had a lot of love for Tony Marshall for a long time, but he's had about 2.5 good seasons in the last 8 years, and I don't think we're going to see a resurgence in Anthony Martial's form. He's been consistently injured for years. Even when he's not injured and he's on the pitch, his demeanor doesn't look right, and his output hasn't been there. And we're still waiting for this kind of breakout Rashford season where he bangs in 30 goals. Anthony Martial's best years are behind him. He's too injury prone. When he's been given chances, he hasn't taken them. When he got his move to Seville, he was as blunt as a butter knife. He couldn't even get a move to a Seville team that was fighting relegation at the time. It's a sad state of affairs for Anthony Martial. I wish it could have been different. But would I be starting Martial through the middle instead of Sancho as a false 9? the false nine position does have that false nine playing a little bit more down the pitch. That means more help for the midfield. And I think we can all agree that that midfield can do with all the help it can get, especially with Mason Mount now being injured. Those attacking areas are now a little bit weakened. So to have Sancho playing in between those lines, the middle third and the final third, helping out in midfield as an attacking player, maybe setting up play for the wing forwards to come in, I think that is an absolute no-brainer, as opposed to Martial, who doesn't do a lot of defensive work, doesn't play far back. He's kind of waiting for through balls and waiting for those positions coming in through the left. He's not going to be providing any sort of defensive contribution, not the same way that Sancho could, playing a little bit deeper in that false nine role. So for me, Sancho has to start as a false nine. Put Martial on the bench, bring him on for the last 20 minutes if Sancho's not doing anything. But certainly the minutes deserve to go to Sancho, given how reasonably well he deputized as that number 9, that false 9 during preseason. I think it makes absolute sense, especially given the fact that Rashford needs to start out in the left. The Rashford through the middle experiment with Garnacho on the left has not worked for the first 2 games for a variety of reasons. Okay, they're not getting a lot of the ball, but they did waste opportunities, and Garnacho has not played well. You cannot blame other people for their form at the moment. They have to take responsibility for that, and it's there for everyone to see. So Rashford has to start on the left. That's it. And Garnacho needs to go back on the bench, which I never thought I'd say, because I love Garnacho and I thought he deserved to start on the left ahead of everyone. While Højlund was on the bench, I thought, right, let's get Garnacho and Rashford on the pitch at the same time. They're good footballers. Stuff is going to happen with those guys on the pitch, but it hasn't. So Rashford needs to go back out onto the left, and Sancho needs to start as a false 9. Helping out with the midfield when he can and playing a little bit deeper. The right-hand side, that is the big question. Do you persist with Antony? The answer is no, you do not persist with Antony. He has been appalling. He wasn't good during preseason. He's been very, very poor in the first 2 games as well. And I want Antony to work out. I love Brazilian players coming into this club. There's always a bit of excitement when a Brazilian is in your team. We all have this kind of weight of expectation that these Brazilians are just going to, rip it up with their forward thinking, exciting, brave, technically gifted style. But he just has not been there. You can see in games he's following Ten Hag's instructions. He's trying to follow his man. He's trying to, come back into those deeper positions, more defensive positions, and help out the fullback. But he's just not very good at it. He too often loses his man. You could see during the Spurs game, he was pointing and shouting at other people to pick up positions he should have been picking up. And he's just been very blunt in attack, regardless of what he's been doing in defense. He's a one-trick pony at the moment. He just comes in, goes onto his left, takes a shot, tries to lay it off. He crushes the fullback that's marking him into those central positions, tightening up those channels, making it more difficult for our forward players to find space. He's not helping us stretch the defenses. It's not working, and he needs to be benched, and he needs to kind of think about what he needs to be doing and how he needs to train on. For me, it's screaming out that Facundo Pellistri starts out in the right. The cameos that he has made so far this season have been excellent, and he needs to be given more game time, show that his performances warrant inclusion in a starting 11, and to show the rest of the squad, you will play your way out and you will play your way into this team based on form. For Ten Hag to persist with Antony, given the shocking lack of form that he has shown, as much as he dropped Sancho for Garnacho, he needs to drop Antony. If he doesn't, I think it sends a very bad message to the squad that he clearly has his favourites, and regardless of how he plays, he's going to be included. I don't think that is a good message to send to the rest of the squad. It's very, very important, I think, that Antony is dropped, and Ten Hag shows that he doesn't have preferential treatment to his boys from Ajax. That could start murmurs and a lack of cohesion in the squad. It's all about the group. Ten Hag has been quoted as saying this. Players who've been interviewed since Ten Hag has taken over says Ten Hag is all about the group, how the group plays together. You achieve as a team, you lose as a team. If you want to have unity in that team, you need to show that everyone is droppable and everyone can play themselves into the first 11. Antony needs to be dropped. Pellistri needs to be on the right. And if and when Højlund does come back into the team, Sancho needs to start out on the right, Højlund up top, and Rashford out on the left. And Antony, Garnacho and Pellistri can start fighting it out for those remaining positions until one of those players plays themselves out of the first team. That would be my take on it, but let's see what happens on Saturday. For the midfield, With Mount out, we've got Casemiro, Fernandes. To me, it's screaming out that McTominay should start this game with Kobe Mainoo out. Mason Mount is out. Fred has been sold. This is absolutely a game Fred would have come in for. But with Mainoo missing and with Mount out of action, the only players you can bring in there are McTominay and Van de Beek. Van de Beek is a little bit too lightweight. I don't think you can rely on him to be lying too deep. He's definitely a more advanced player. He plays in those number 10 positions. He's not really an 8. McTominay is clearly more defensive-minded. While he's not a strict defensive midfielder, you cannot say he is a number 10. So he would be a more deep-lying midfielder. It's completely obvious McTominay should start this game. I don't see who else can come in. Given he wasn't even given a minutes against Tottenham when 5 substitutes came on, I don't know why that is. Is he being kept wrapped in cotton wool for a transfer to West Ham or another team? I don't know. Will he want to protect McTominay? We don't need to protect anything right now. What we need to do is protect the start of our season and get 3 points on the board against Nottingham Forest. Does he think that Forest won't have enough in midfield or are too lightweight? I think given how Wolves played, I think a lot of the lower end teams will take a lot of comfort in how to play against United. Put it up them. Overload the midfield and just watch United fall apart. That's exactly what happened against Wolves. I don't see why Forest couldn't do the same. They can pack the midfield. They've got Brennan Johnson playing as a striker who's incredibly fast, a great talent, and he's going to be very, very dangerous. And I think that they could just pack out the midfield and wait for those through balls or over the top balls to play Brennan Johnson through to try and score some goals. We've also got Anthony Elanga. You can just, the smell of Anthony Elanga getting an assist or a goal during this game is palpable. I hope it doesn't happen. It'd be great for the kid if it did for him, but not for United fans. How United play in the midfield, I think it has to be McTominay, Casemiro and Fernandes. I just think we need to shore up that midfield. We need to have some legs in there beside Casemiro to help him out. And McTominay is definitely the guy to do that. But defense is the big question. What are United going to do? We're missing Malacia, missing Shaw. Alvaro Fernandez, is he too young to be expected to come in and start a Premier League game on the left-hand side? I would do what Man City are doing. Use one of the many centre halves that you have to play on those wing positions. Martinez has played on the left for Argentina before. He's played in the left back position. Dalot can also play in the left back position as well, I believe. But what I would do is I would have Lindelof going in at centre half beside Varane, and I would have Martinez out on the left, coming into those midfield positions to create that box midfield with Casemiro. If McTominay wanted to get a little bit more advanced with Fernandes, that's what Shaw has been trying to do with with Casemiro. So when United are in possession, the back four becomes a back three. The full back pulls into the midfield position to join the defensive midfielder for a double pivot, while the other midfielder can join Fernandes, which would have been Mount. And then you've got 5 players in attack. I think it just makes sense. Martinez has played left back before. He's played central defensive midfield for Ajax in the past. And it just makes sense to me that that's where he ends up. So for me, it has to be Lisandro Martinez on the left, Lindelof in the middle with Rafael Varane and Aaron Wan-Bissaka out on the right. McTominay tucking in beside Casemiro in the midfield, allowing Fernandes to get a little bit more advanced. And then with Pellistri, I would probably have on the right. I think that makes sense with Sancho as a false 9 with Marcus Rashford playing on the left. That to me would be the strongest 11 given the options that are available to Erik Ten Hag at the moment. My prediction for the match, I am going to try and stay positive and say 2-1 United. I think we have looked leaky. We have been allowing teams far more opportunities than they might otherwise deserve. So it would be my prediction that they're probably going to get a goal, but I'm hoping that with a little bit more of a solid midfield, we're going to be able to attach the defense and the attack a little bit better and try and get 2 goals. So 2-1 United, fingers crossed, but I am very interested to see how Erik Ten Hag is going to put this first 11 together. A very important game for United as run-ins go. It was a pretty good run-in. We've only got 3 points out of the first 2 games. I think it's vitally important that we get 3 against Forest, and hopefully that will be the case. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, if you've liked the content, please hit the like button, hit subscribe, and please leave a comment. Who would you leave in at left back? Who would you have as centre half? Who would you play in those forward positions? Who should replace Mason Mount in midfield? There's a huge amount of decisions there for Erik Ten Hag, and I'd love to hear what you guys would want to do in every part of the pitch. Defence, midfield, the forward lines, all of it needs a little bit of a rework. So what would you guys do? Leave the comments below, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Take care.